Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, is my own little hang-on dangler book of points. It's Tom. What's up, buddy?
Hello, friends.
How you doing today, Tom?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well.
Good, man. Yeah, me too. How is your being shut in with all your kids going?
Everybody's surviving.
There you go. That's positive. So A
Right.
plus on
It's we have a really low bar around here. So,
that.
if it's happening, it's happening.
Cool. Well, we locked in our plans to get together here next month.
Oh, can I offer a clarification?
Mm-hmm.
This isn't evil beard, Tom. This is number 2 beard.
Sure, yes, you've actually trimmed it. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, like this is Riker beard.
Oh yeah, on Friday you were looking rough.
Yeah, yeah. This is right. This is Riker beard.
Riker
this is
beard.
not.
Well,
this is not evil beard.
Sure, I'll buy that. All right. So number one, uh, what's let's talk about what's in the news, man. How about that? Because there's a little bit of news this week.
Sure. Let's talk about how I was right.
Okay.
How about that rumor engine?
It's up. It's up on the screen. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So unpack why you were right, Tom. I'm ready.
We're clearly getting vampires.
Okay. All right. So this is a vampire thing. Okay.
Yeah, the hilt is very much like that. You see the wrist guard, but like the naked arm again, the wrist guard from the other side. Yeah, it's vampires. Like
Okay.
the hilt is a lot like what's their face's hilt? The old Vlad, his old sword.
Okay. Okay. So you're saying this is not an elf thing.
No, no, no. This is Vampire Corsairs.
Okay. Uh, because it does feel like it could also be an elf thing. I mean, I just want to point that out. There are
Maybe.
7 models at least in that like shady elf range for Warcry that we haven't seen.
Sure, sure. I mean,
But I will grant you, it does look like a very vampiric, flourishy nonsense sword. Yes.
with no with shoulder pads and no sleeves. I mean, come on. Like it's like the other arm to that model we saw.
What's funny about it to me is this came out and everybody was immediately like, there was a contingent of people that were like vampires, and there were a contingent of people that were like elves. And then there's the smaller part where who realized this is an overlapping Venn diagram and it could just be vampire elves, and that our coastal vampires could all be elvish vampires.
I mean, they could. That's a possibility. Maybe they're all Ideneth vampires that have been turned.
So
Because we did get the clue from the Dark Elves, if you'll remember this.
yeah,
We got the clue that the one corpse was like drained of blood.
yes,
With
it was the
Malarian.
guy who was going into Ulgu to investigate Malarian, and he was
Yep.
dead in his office and completely exsanguinated. Yes, without
Yep.
a drop of blood around. Which, by the way, is basically a ripoff of The Exorcist 3. I've seen
Sure.
that movie.
Sure.
At any rate,
No,
It's a good movie.
let's connect some dots here in
Sure.
good old conspiracy theory style.
Okay.
So we are talking about Dark Elves, we're talking about vampires, we're talking about Corsairs.
Mhm.
Could it be the release of the truly dark, like Scourge Privateers? And so you get like the true Corsair models that are elves, but are also vampires.
Okay. Okay.
So maybe there are some of the Scourge Privateers that are turned in the vampire pirate army.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it's a dark elf thing, and they're borrowing that sword. That's just what I'm gonna go ahead and go with. Yeah. Yep.
You think so?
Yep. That's what I'm going for. Yep. That's my guess. There you go. My guess is complete. But my other thought is that how long are we going to have to wait now before we know all these? Because the rumor engines have all continued, right?
Like a year and a half.
Unabated. So, back when we first started the rumor engine thing, it was a long time before we actually, like, we would have these huge lags in between.
Right.
And it's varied over time. Sometimes we have to wait a while. Sometimes we wait like a week and then they reveal the model, right?
Right.
But with everything that's happened here, one like with what's been going on with them not being able to ship anything for 2 months plus, right? I see you have some children situation. I'll let you tackle that. Tom's going to tackle his children thing. So with everything related to that, I have to wonder, like, what's the actual distance going to be here in between us seeing this and then solving this? And my thought is quite a while. Quite a
I
while.
apologize for that.
No, you're fine.
The situation has been handled.
Okay. Uh, anyway, so there you go. Who knows? I like both of these calls. I'm gonna love it when it's a super left turn and it is neither a vampire nor an elf.
Oh yeah, totally. Like, yeah, it'll be pretty amazing. Yes.
Absolutely. All right. So, what's next on the newsy news?
Newsy news. Let's do how about GHB? I mean, this is related, right? This is related to our topic, but we saw the shipping manifest. Like GHB has shipped both the normal and the Warlord edition.
Yep.
So that's continuing.
Yes. Those books are obviously those things are produced overseas, not in the UK, so they have to be shipped quite early because they get on a boat and that boat sails and then it lands somewhere else. And I believe the label we saw was the receipt label. Is that correct?
Yep.
So that means it arrived, right? That was it. That was it's arriving and it's like it was a bill of lading or something as it arrived in port.
I don't even know what that means. Oh, by the way, that hilt, somebody said something about Slaanesh. That hilt actually looked a lot like your pretty boy hilt.
Sigvald?
Sigvald's, yeah. Like the hilt, like the detailing on that is actually remarkably similar to Sigvald's.
Ish.
Ish.
He had a dueling sword, yes. So that's not quite what he had, but sure. I've painted that fig many times.
Sure. So the other thing with that, so related to the shipping label, I'm jumping back, is like it may be in port for a while, and depending on how things are, like with the current labor stuff, with like inspections, we don't know actually how quickly that may move.
Sure.
And I say that to say that like I ordered some stuff from Green Stuff World.
Okay.
6 weeks ago. And it's still shipping. Like it's still in process on like in customs, like waiting to be fully like shipped within the United States.
Sure.
So it got stuck in like the midst of like the traveling and or like inspection stuff.
Yeah.
I suspect that it's sitting in a warehouse somewhere on our coast. But the point of that being that like if that stuff's not all cleared everywhere, it could really delay release potentially.
Sure. Well, let's say previously this book would have dropped at the end of June, right?
Right.
One can imagine that they would have wanted it to drop somewhere around the anniversary, right? That would have been part of what they would have, celebrate the 5-year anniversary with the new GHB and this, right? Like they would have wanted something marketing wise. So I'm sure that's what they still are driving toward, but unknown whether or not they'd be able to hit it because that'd be a relatively fast turnaround.
I would have expected it in the first or second week of July is when I would have expected it.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Now it makes you think like, well, does that mean we get like an August GHB this year, right?
Or September.
Sure, or later. Entirely possible. But I mean, I think that's all up full of a bunch of unknowns, right? Like, again, we don't know what the world looks like in 2 weeks, let alone a month from now or a month and a half from now or whatever, right? So we'll have to keep playing it by ear, as it were.
I don't know. I'm going to be up in Columbus rolling some dice in 2 weeks.
That's true. That's happening. Yes. But beyond that, we don't know. Like my point is, the world is it's shifting around. So
indeed. Speaking of shifting around, Gen Con was canceled.
Yes. Yep, that was a big announcement. Gen Con was canceled. I believe Midwest Meltdown was canceled.
Yep, Midwest Meltdown, another victim of COVID.
Sure. I mean, the Gen Con thing was only a matter of time. I have to imagine that was more insurance based than anything else. I don't know that for sure. But like that was never in the cards. Like our life may be.
Sure.
I mean, seriously.
Sure.
This year, like we may return to some semblance of life. I'm not a health expert. Listen to your local health experts.
Sure.
Be responsible, all that sort of thing. But like what it seems to be the situation that we're going to evolve into here is we're okay to get together in relatively smallish groups.
Yep.
Workplaces that will operate at low capacity. That is to say, like they'll have as few people in the office as they feel is reasonable. You want to get together with your friends, that's fine. You want to go get a haircut, that's fine. That kind of stuff. But like, but getting 70,000 people together, pressed shoulder to shoulder for
Yeah, it's
four
not happening.
days for
Yeah.
12 hours a day is just like it's just. I mean, most years I came back from Gen Con and would be sick a few days later, right, with some kind of sniffles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because anything there got passed so fast. So like those kind of major events, I just can't imagine those are in the cards when they're that big and that dense. That's
Yeah.
the other trick, right? Like
Yep.
Gen
Yep.
Con, if you've never been there,
Yep.
the best way I can describe it is like if you live in a place with a subway, say like say like the tube in London or the subway in New York or the metro in DC or anything like this that I've ridden on all those at rush hour. And when you get on one of those things at rush hour, Chicago, the L, the same thing. If you get on one of those things at rush hour, you're like jumping into it and you're literally like this because you're standing next to other people at all points in time. They're just like it's a press of humanity against you.
Yep. Yep.
That's Gen Con, but for like all the time. Just all the time.
For 18 hours a day, approximately. And it's just insane.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're going to go into like the vendor hall or one of the busy halls, right? Or any of the
Right.
like any of the seminar rooms that they're packed because they're talking about something that's exciting or released. Like, sure, you can wander around the sort of new board game area, and it's pretty
Yeah.
open and free, and you can be not near other people. But you take a step into that exhibition hall or the busy rooms or stuff like that, or outside where you're waiting for lunch. Oh God,
It reminds me, I need to get back to Gen Con. It's
yeah,
been a
we've
couple
missed
years.
you the past couple of years, Tom.
Yeah, I know.
We've been having a grand old time.
I'm sure you have. Uh, so we heard that by the 15th we should hear from Nova as well.
Yeah, that's the word that they said. I don't know if it'll be the final word on the 15th, but they
Yeah,
said
but
like
they'll
the
know
next.
more information.
Yeah, they said the next big update is on the 15th. So
Yep. And so we'll see what that yields. Obviously, June 15th.
yeah,
We haven't heard anything about NashCon yet. Although
it's a much smaller convention in a much bigger space,
a
and
much
so who
smaller
knows?
convention, much bigger space, and it's in a city and a state that is a lot more lax on its restriction.
Sure,
I mean,
but it's also
like,
only a couple hundred people. There's a
right,
difference between that
right,
and there's a difference between a couple hundred people and again 70,000 or something like
right,
that, right?
right. So I'm still crossing my fingers for or for not for NashCon. We'll see. I'm really hoping that comes through. But yeah.
Yeah.
So those are events. Those are things happening. But we do have a digital event coming. Next Saturday, GW has announced a new reveal show that is 40K only. It's so big they could only do 40K. What is it, Vince?
I don't know. I mean, everybody's the belief is, of course, that it's going to be the announcement for the next edition change, right? I mean, that it's the end of Psychic Awakening, which is going to lead into the next edition. That's been the
Right.
running theory.
Which was what they did with Malign Portents, if you'll remember.
Mhm.
They had this Malign Portents event. At the end of the Malign Portents event, they said in a couple months, new AOS. Yeah, maybe.
I know no idea. I mean, I'll certainly watch it. I'm interested to see what's going on in the 40K world. I'm actually watching it just to see if they talk about it all when they think they're going to start shipping things again. Like
Sure.
that's one of the main
Yeah.
reasons that I want to see what it is. Like if they
Yeah.
announce the next edition or what the end of Psychic Awakening looks like, or Chaos Primaris Marines, and if it's like there's Chaos Primaris that crazy mad doctor figured out and cracked and made, and also the end of Psychic Awakening, and also it's ninth edition and the Emperor's back, and just like whatever, I don't know,
And,
pick
and he's
all the
corrupted.
crazy things.
Surprise, you know.
Like I just pick it all, man. I would, you know, I'd love for Big E to wake up at some point. I think that'd be real fun. He'd be probably pretty angry because he's like a bag of bones, but that'd be neat. Um,
It'll
the
be interesting. It'll be
do they
interesting.
make an Emperor level Rubicon crossing Primaris suit? Just like I would just want it for the fig. I think he'd be amazing. But anyways, let's assume that every crazy thing you can imagine happens, right? Oh, thank you. And
And
as Paul mentioned, yes,
Plastic
and a
Thunder.
plastic Thunderhawk. Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
What
It's all
everybody's waiting
happening.
for.
Everything you've dreamed of. It's all coming true.
Yes.
Yes. You moved and your camera went out of focus, Tom.
Oh,
There you go. Now you're back in. When you leaned away to the side, it didn't know where you went. So whatever the case of all of that, again, I'll watch with interest. I like that kind
yep.
of stuff. I'm interested to see what happens, but really, I just want to know, like, do we have an announcement on when Engine War happens, and I get the rest of my Cities of Sigmar army?
No.
Do we know when anything's shipping? Do they have any? Like, I just want to hear, what's going on, right? Like,
Yeah.
give me some
Nope.
little piece of news about what you know and what your plans are.
Nope.
That's what I'm really keen for. So
You will learn none of that.
you're probably right, but that's okay. I'll still hold out hope.
Sure.
So there you go. I'm gonna hold out hope. But yeah, I'll tune in. I doubt it'll necessitate a show for us afterward, unless something really left turns. I see a very low probability of us doing a show afterward because we're not a 40K show. So
Unless suddenly like that mythical merger happens when they're
Sure,
like
like-
surprise.
it would have to be that. Well, there could be like an orthogonal announcement that could be worthwhile. Like, we're relaunching Forge World and it's all plastic now, and like, here's all the 40K stuff, and also they announce a bunch of AOS stuff for the future of Forge World as well, sort of tangentially, right?
You know what my fear is?
I'm ready.
Is that Forge World never opens.
That they just retire it. I
Yeah,
mean,
because they were already talking about being in transition.
sure, yeah,
with
yeah.
Forge World. And so like I would be really sad if that happened because there's a bunch of kits from there for my goblins that I want.
I'm not, because I almost just wish they would retire that whole thing and do something reasonable with it.
And
It's
that's
such
fine.
a little like
I just want my Colossal Squig and my Gaba, and I want like the better mounted guy, and I want like the weird shaman that's all like tripped up and floating on
Sure.
gas. Like,
look,
yeah.
it's the appendix of GW right now. Like, just
and like Troll Hag, like the Troll Hag is there.
okay, cool, man.
Yeah.
At one point in our evolutionary history, it had a point.
Yeah,
It doesn't
did.
anymore. It just accidentally gets inflamed sometimes and kills us when points don't get readjusted or a model's rules don't get reined in properly, and then it becomes weird. So there you go. Yes, it's fine
Yeah.
as specialist game support. I'm okay with that. Anywho, we'll see. Much to see. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
no,
Yep.
Soren said I don't want more Titans. Let me refine what I said about Forge World. I honestly don't mind most of the 40K stuff they do. I think the 40K stuff they do is actually useful because they run a huge range of valuable 40K stuff.
And
The
Horse
big,
Heresy, the
Yeah,
awesome Custodes vehicles.
right, all that stuff is super cool. It's been a dangler in AOS, and I apologize. I should have been more like careful with my words there, because the problem is with the AOS side of Forge World. It's just been so, like, we've been running on the same sculpts for 7 years, 8
No
years,
way.
10 years,
No way.
longer in some cases.
Didn't you buy those Stormcast headsets?
Sure, yeah. No, my point is that like a lot of those, and like a lot of the monsters aren't even really around anymore. Like half of them are retired. The sculpts they don't even make. It's
I saw the Incarnate of Flame on Twitter the other day,
yeah.
and I was like, oh, where's that model?
Yeah, I have. That's the first. I saw the same one on Twitter. It's the first time I'd seen the model in real life.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, well, hello.
Yeah. So like, again, it can stick around for 40K or get changed in its business practice. But if it's going to do something for AOS, I wish it would just do something for AOS. Like, be part of it, right?
Yeah.
Be part of actually what we're doing here. It feels much more synergistic with with 40k. In the case of like the Knights is a great example. You have 2 basic Imperial Knights kits. Great.
Yeah.
You know, and they're wonderful kits in plastic. And then there's a bunch of other really cool knights that you can use and integrate into your army, and they're all and I'm not even going up to like the Warlord Titan and the
Yeah. Yeah. The silly stuff.
the silly stuff that's the size of a child. I mean, they just have like actually lots of nice stuff for knights. I mentioned the Tantalus or whatever it's called, like the big dark Eldar ship is really cool. Like there's a lot of stuff like that
Yeah.
that feels like it's part of the range and meant to be used there. Whereas this stuff now, because most of it's from a different game.
Yeah. Only Gloomspite. Like Gloomspite is the only one that you look at and go, "Yep." But everything else doesn't feel right.
It feels like a hanger on because it came over from what it was before, right? Yeah. And nothing ever got updated to like the new armies, the new styles, the new whatever, right? So
yeah, anyway. I agree with that. Yeah.
All right. Anyway,
Forge World, come back, please.
Sure.
So other things. We had a series of duels that happened this week, and a couple things were proved.
Yeah, absolutely. What was proved was that in fact Archaon is the best. This is rigorously scientifically tested.
Well, of the mounted people.
Of the like mounted god folk, yes.
Eltharion
won the like foot-based heroes.
King of the foot heroes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
The people they put him up against, I was like, he's just chopping up losers.
Karnak? Really?
I love that Karnak. Look, Karnak went all the way. He got to the finals.
He did. He's like, I got multiple heads.
He was like Gonzaga in there, like getting real deep into the finals, but just can't quite make it. But I was super thrilled how far Karnak got.
Oh man,
he's a good dog.
But I saw like the starting lineups of all, and it's like, oh wow, Eltharion's gonna win. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as he just murders everybody. Yes. Yeah. The god matchup I thought was hilarious because of, I mean, the funny parts of the sort of god or powerful matchup was that Alariel got spiked like in just like a football, just so hard did she get splatted. They even made the joke about she's now the Never Queen, and I was like, wow. Well, I guess we're all just on board here that Alariel is no good.
Oh, poor girl.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even close. I also enjoyed how bad the Celestin Prime died. He got killed. He got triple killed by Starbrand.
Clearly. He just wasn't being played in Hammerhall. That's the problem here.
Well, the funny part about him getting killed as bad as he did is it's not like he and Scarbrand are that far apart in points. Okay? Right. Yes, right. It's, you know what I mean? Like, you could see a matchup where there is a big points differential or something like that. And you're like, well, of course this model won. We would expect it to. It's, like some of Archaon's early matches, right? Because it's like, yeah, right. There's a 400, 600 point differential there or whatever. Like, I would certainly hope that this model handily deals with the competition, right? Yep. But no, it just like, it just, yeah, she's on the level. She's that expensive, right. And yet still here we are. Anyway, it was good to see Nagash go down like a chump. I enjoyed that. He loses yet again. One more defeat in an endless string of historical and constant defeats. So, there you go. That's what you get, Nagash. That's what you get for being the lesser. For a pretender to the throne. There can be only one.
I think that's news.
Yeah, that's news.
We don't really have a lot. That's kind of where we're at.
Sure.
Other than your wife taking shots at you in the chat.
Well, it's 100% correct. I will yell vindication at the slightest drop, because Brooklyn Nine-Nine is amazing. All right, let's talk about some pick of the week, man. What do you got?
I'm gonna be a chump and semi self promote.
Mm-hmm.
Me and you are gonna be on a stream on Friday.
Yes. and
in
probably
fact,
most Fridays to come.
yeah,
Hopefully,
and not
fingers
just
crossed.
Friday, but probably most Fridays. I haven't told Amber yet, so we're gonna see how it works.
Oh
But
boy, might need to be fishing for a replacement player soon. So
um, Fridays we are going to be on a stream with Mr. Mephisto, and we're going to be playing Soulbound, folks. So if you want a second dose of Tom and Vince, every week we'll be on Mr. Mephisto's channel playing Soulbound. Vince is going to be role playing as Skaven.
yeah,
And I'll be playing one of my Caradrongs. So
sure.
I'm going to grow out my beard in dwarfy fashion.
I'm not going. We're not going to. The other two people are Chuck from obviously of Strength Hammer
Strength Hammer. Yeah,
and
Mr. Witch Elf, Mr. Witch Elf himself.
Mr. Witch Elf himself, yes, and then Joe or Haywo Twitch. So yes,
Yeah, and so it'll be us four playing under Mr. Mephisto, and it's going to be fantastic.
yeah.
Joe's going to be a
ogre.
I was gonna say an Everwinter ogre, but that's not appropriate.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much about their character, but let them do their characters.
Yep.
So yes.
So, anyways, it's going to be delightful. Hey, I have a top hat, so I'll wear it. I'll do it.
Sure. There you go.
I'll do it. Unfortunately, I'm playing the Fire Slayer side of my character, not the KO side.
Right.
Otherwise, a top hat would be totally appropriate. So yeah, so we're gonna play, and we're excited, and we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, and on that tip, we'll be doing our Soulbound review show next week.
Right.
So,
and we'll have some folks from not from around here.
No, we'll get some. We're gonna have some of the Aussies on to help us out to do the Soulbound review show. So, yeah, rock on. I will also do this to help everybody find Meph's channel early and see thoughts on Soulbound. We'll just pile on here. I've actually got 2 picks of the week I'd like to direct everybody to. The first one is I'll mention that I was on Rantcast recently with Meph last Saturday, Friday. I don't know what time we did it.
It was a great video.
And he and I went into a deep dive discussion about Soulbound and its picadillos and nuances. So if you want to see a preview of my thoughts, I'll go deeper on probably this and in a more organized fashion on our review show next Wednesday. But if you want to see that, you can. That's his Twitch stream. I'll link that down below. I also want to shout out friend of the show, John Nenas. He and Scott Miniac are doing their podcast Trapped Under Plastic. They had a really, really great episode this last week that I really enjoyed, which was a discussion about painting tabletop standard and what it means and like being happy with getting your army painted and on the table and stuff like that. I thought it was just a really good discussion about like what does that actually mean, where did it come from, and how should you treat it and stuff like that. I think there's always a lot of discussion about that, so I thought that was a really good talk. I will link both of those down below.
And there's another Soulbound. There's like so many Soulbound shows dropping in the coming weeks.
Oh sure.
And so like if this RPG interests you, just keep an eye on our picks of the week because it's going to just be like all over the place probably.
Yeah, we'll frequently reference that stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. So with that, let's talk about some hobby time. What are you working on there, Tom? What's going on, man?
I got like all of those boxes or models.
Okay.
And you can almost see it. I put together some more KO. As if I needed more. I put together a Thundrix
Profiteers.
Yep. Which it dawned on me in writing my lore that like, so do you remember when I wrote up my blog like back in 2017 for my Caradrong Overlords and I did a bunch of lore stuff?
No.
You don't remember that? Okay, thanks. Like back when you did your Trap Jaws stuff and all that for your orcs you don't remember any of this? Okay.
Nope.
Anyways, so I did a bunch of lore stuff. Like I wrote up a big post with all my photos and then talked about like the lore behind my Skyport and all that stuff. And it cracked me up Because one of the main characters there was named Thrundrick.
Okay. Oh, Thrundrick, you're very close to
Yeah,
Thundrick, yeah.
yeah, and it was like one letter off Thundrick, and so I had been working on that, and I was started put them together, and I was like, hey, wait a minute,
Nice. Well
this is
done.
really close. And so, anyways, so that was really funny. Anyway, so I put those guys together this week. And then, yeah, that's it.
Okay, well, hey, that's something, Tom. Good for you.
It is something. So you really can't see it, but like it's close. Like my Loon Shrine is really close. There's some details like right here I haven't done.
Mm-hmm. Well, you better get them get them deets.
I got a highlight right here. Then I got to do the eyes. But like other than that, like I'm really close.
Good. I'm glad to hear
it. But the reality is that because we're doing this campaign, I'm totally going to be taking a break from all my goblin stuff to go back to my dwarves, because I'm all passionate about my dwarves again.
Sure. Well, it'll do that. I mean, I will say, in digging into this, it got me, excited about a lot of things again. It got me excited to see what Skaven I could get out and paint. Finding a Skaven model to represent my character is not going to be the easiest thing in the world. I'm amazed I found art. Getting an actual Skaven model is going to be real tricky.
Yeah, I'm. It's funny. I have enough old Fireslayer models that I haven't done anything with, but I can certainly cut up enough pieces of different models and from my bits box to build something that's going to be appropriate for my hero. Not that I'm ever actually going to use it, but
sure,
it'll be a thing.
Yep. All right. For myself, I've been working on a bust that I finished up. Obviously, my Knight Azeros and my Battle Mage, shared those out over the weekend, and so I'm trying to alternate back and forth. And so this is not going to show well here because she's very strange, and she's in sub-assembly, so it's going to be tough here. But it's not usual that you have to paint busts in sub-assemblies, but this one you do. So I'll put one of her wings in. But I've been working on this bust from Broken Toad, which is this very sad sort of fallen angel. And so there you go. And I've been working on her a whole bunch, and she's been a really fun time playing around with her. She has two wings, by the way. I just can't hold both wings in place. But she's been having a really fun time with more experimentation and work and practice with oil paints. I'm wanting to make sure that I'm really putting it through a lot of paces before I record my full-fledged oil paint tutorial. There will be an oil paint tutorial coming soon, sooner than that. Then there'll be a much deeper dive one about painting other colors. So we're going to start with flesh, because flesh is one of the easiest things to do with oil. It's also one of the most fun. If you ever have had challenges painting flesh, then I highly recommend you watch the oil paints video and think about it. It's funny because, the trick with oil paints is that they are okay. So let me put it this way. One of the most common challenges people have in painting miniatures is this. Tom, do you find blending annoying?
No, I just use an airbrush.
Sure. How about on small spaces where you can't do that?
I just ignore it.
Right. Well, that's not an uncommon answer. I don't mean like it's not necessarily a bad statement. A lot of people do. Either they find blending really hard, or achieving contrast really hard, or stuff like that. That's a joke with oil paints. That's seconds of work. Okay, because the nature of what the thing is.
Right. It auto blends. I understand.
Yeah, I mean, actually, the real challenge with it is just learning to control it, because it is a harder to work with medium and how it acts. You have to use like white spirits, which are toxic, and there's just a lot. It's not as by numbers. I don't mean that in any kind of.
Right. It's not user friendly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely not as user friendly. There is a much more shallow learning curve.
I have to think long and hard when I decide to do an oil wash, which I do.
Sure.
Like on occasion,
because I got you on that because you saw the power and how amazing and easy it was.
And I'm super lazy, and so if I look at something, and it's cheap too. So if I look at something and I'm like, I want to wash this whole thing in a black wash just to pull out detail, but I don't want to spend like $20 on Nuln oil, then I'm like, yeah, I can do an oil wash. I'll take the 20 minutes it is to like to prep everything and get all my stuff out and mix it up just to use it and then have a bunch left over and never not touch it. Whatever.
Yep. Yep. Oh, somebody asked, are Vince and Tom going to do a Soulbound actual play or AP actual play, whatever it is? Yes, we're going to play the game and stream it on Meph's channel on Friday night. I think 10 p.m. Eastern ish.
It's not going to be like a.
We're not instructing anybody. We're not playing
instructing
the game.
anybody. We're just playing. And if somebody is bored enough to just watch us, they're welcome to come watch us.
I think it'll be a fun time.
Oh, I don't doubt that.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be amazing.
So, but yeah, anyway, that's what I've been working on. I'm excited about her. I like how she's coming out, and it's a lot of fun to go to mix all those different mediums because it was all over the place. It was oils and acrylics, and it was brush blending and airbrush blending and just everything back and forth. So, she'll be done here in the next day or so. So, good stuff. All right. With that, Tom.
Yes.
Let's talk about that GHB, buddy. Ring-a-ding-ding. Let's predict a thing. So
I don't know if our audience has figured this out yet, but anytime Vince, like we're stuck on something, Vince is like prediction show.
Prediction show, yeah, sure.
That's what we're doing.
Whenever we get like light on other topics to cover, that's what it'll be.
Yes.
Or if we don't have a guest who I know wants to discuss something, because I try to make sure when we have I try to book guests to discuss armies they play and to focus on that kind of stuff. So when it's just us, there it is. Ring a ding ding. Let's predict a thing. GHB 2020. Well, this was well timed, obviously, because obviously we saw the shipping manifest or whatever this week, and so I was like, oh ha, okay, get on the tinfoil hats. Let's do this. So I want to start by actually, Tom, before we get into our predictions, can we talk about the GHB 2019? So I happen to have both books right here. I'm prepared. So obviously, if we remember GHB,
I'm not. Mine are over there, and I'm not going to show you guys my butt, so I'm just going to wait.
Good choice, Tom. Okay, so if we remember, GHB 2019 was the first year where we got this, right? The two book format. Yep. Okay, this book being the thin book, being all the pitched battle profiles, all the points adjustments, many of which are wrong at this point, because they got adjusted in the winter FAQ since points change twice a year now, which I'm not complaining about. I am super fine with that. Okay, yes, please keep changing the points twice a year. So A+, good work. But also surprisingly, which included like all the monstrous arcanum, right?
Right.
Which included all of the legend stuff that we weren't expecting, like just randomly in here. All the Tomb King stuff and the Legion of Asgore and Tamerkin's Horde all showed up in here, and and obviously because the previous FAQ answer had been how does something become legal to play in a match game?
It has to be in GHB,
and so here they all are. So like theoretically, the answer of can I play my Tomb Kings at a tournament is sure, absolutely.
Yeah, they're in the book, right?
They have approved points. Right here they are. It is page 30, and all of your wonderful, wonderful Tomb Kings are right here. Now, I'm not sure that this army is going to be the most competitive at this point, but hey, you can play them if you want to, which is what I like. I like the idea of old things having points and being playable, but not necessarily competitive. I'm fine with that.
I don't know. Cetra at 460 points for his 6 wounds or 8 wounds or whatever.
It's 8 wounds. He is actually tough beyond what he would seem, by the by.
I understand. I do.
And
he can have items now, which actually goes a long way.
Yes, correct, because he's just a Tomb King on Exalted Chariot. So I mean, you actually can make him pretty tough. But anyway, between his command trait and his artifact.
Yep.
Okay, so I assume that we all think, but let's just keep that in our mind, because I assume that basically our argument's going to be this is going to stay roughly the same. Like, this is the first year of this. Yep. I think what we'll say is, for the most part, this will be like this. And we are going to talk about points changes we'd like to see. Okay?
Yep. We are?
Yes, we'll talk about some. Sure. But this, I realized something as I was getting ready to do the show, Tom.
What's that?
I haven't pulled this book off the shelf I know exactly when. I know the last time I pulled this book off the shelf.
Okay, hit me.
It was before they released the gaming book. Like the week before they released the gaming book. Because once the gaming book came out, the little pocket book, right, that had all the scenarios in it, all I was pulling this off for at that point was the scenarios.
Yeah.
Right? Because I didn't need any of the allegiance abilities, because by the end of last year, all of the allegiance abilities I cared about that were in here had been reprinted in books. Right? Like my Iron Jaws had come back out. All that stuff was
all
reprinted.
of it.
Yep.
Yeah, it was like last fall. And suddenly, like, that thing just, like, lost value like a rock.
Yeah. By the like, Slaves to Darkness was out and Iron Jaws was out, and those were my two things. And suddenly I had allegiance abilities for those in separate books. I don't play meeting engagements and have had no desire to ever. I'll be completely honest.
I have, and I played it twice.
3 times a lady. Okay.
Yeah.
Once this,
but it was all in like the same time, and then after that time, we just didn't play that anymore.
Sure, because there's just really not a point. Like, I'll be completely honest. I generally find the 1,500 point range to be much more comfortable. So
well, and they were tinkering with Warcry mechanics.
Right. I don't like the weird mechanics. I just want to play a game at a lower point value.
Right.
I don't. And then, like, the mercenaries and stuff that are in here, I've never really felt the need to use a mercenary company. I know you have a couple lists you've used them for.
I mean, I have 22 models that have been modified and built out for mercenaries for my KO dwarves.
Sure, because I assume you're using basically the Marauder mercenary company at some point. No, I like not for that, but in some of your lists you have used the Marauder mercenary company.
No, I'm actually not that hot on it. I know a lot of people are. I'm not. I think that, like, I struggle with that. Like, I don't think the extra D6 movement is worth what you're giving up. For that, like, maybe.
Are you using the Ghouls mercenary company?
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Fair enough.
Like the Arch Regent mercenary company is the answer. Yes, that's the one. That lets me bring in the Corpse Barricade. That's really good.
Yeah, I mean, and the only other thing that the only other thing in here that I actually like, but I really haven't had a chance to use is the Streets of Death, like the city fighting stuff.
Yep. The Necromancer company is actually really good in Night Haunt. It lets you get a Necromancer into Night Haunt, which gives you the double pile-in.
Sure.
That's solid.
All right.
But you're right. In general, there's just not a lot of value that's there. We got new terrain, right? Like, that was one thing we got in that GHB.
But again, that's in the gaming book.
Say what?
But it's in the gaming book. It got reprinted in the gaming book.
Yeah, it did get reprinted in there. Yep, and the new command abilities got reprinted in the gaming book as well. Is there a date on the gaming book?
Probably. I'd have to look.
I don't have
it. Is it the
2019 gaming book?
Oh, does it say that? No, I think it just says gaming book.
Okay, interesting.
I mean, it feels like the kind of thing that they could also release yearly, because if they're going to introduce, well, let's get into it, and we'll talk about what is the future of the gaming book. We'll get into that, because yes, you're right. All right, so high level view. Like, the point is that a lot of this is suspect. Let's talk about what's not in here for sure. Like, in the 2020 version of this. First of all, all the allegiance abilities, those are gone.
All of them. Like, the only one that's left that has not been updated is Dispossessed.
That's in cities. No, because I'm counting.
But I'm talking about actual, like, what's in there.
Then you would have to count Darkling Covens, Dispossessed, and Wanderers. Okay, but I'm not. I'm counting all of those as having gotten rolled into cities.
Right, and I don't disagree with that. But those are gone. I would agree with that.
Everybody else has their, like, obviously, and then Free Peoples would be the other sort of part of that rotation. It's all part of cities. Seraphon got their own book. Slaves got their own book. Iron Jaws got their own book. Okay, so that right there was 21 pages in the book.
Sure.
Okay. Or to put that another way, because that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
They're just reducing their overhead.
Well, that is 21 pages is exactly 20% of the book. Okay. This is a 105-page book. 21 times 5 is 105. There you go. Very simple math. Okay. So That's gone.
Yep.
Uh, this book has about 14 pages of open play stuff and 24 pages of narrative play stuff. Okay.
Yep.
So, and then the rest is the match play stuff. So a big section, like 30 pages, was meeting engagements and all the reprinted battle plans. That's kind of our breakdown that we're at right now.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
Yep.
let's talk it. We're going to blow by blow this, but at a high level, what are some of the things you would like to see?
Well, everybody is jumping the gun in the comments, so I'm just going to go ahead and say what my idea was.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's talk about the high level things you'd like to see in here. Just let's spitball some ideas.
Since we're gaining a bunch of pages,
sure. At minimum, we're gaining 21 pages. Even if they just reprinted all the open, all the narrative, kept all that stuff.
Yep.
We didn't update any of the battle plans. Like, imagine it was exactly
Yep.
the same. There's 21 blank pages.
Yep. So I'm going to take an idea from Warcry. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Tome of Champions, which is their yearly update, right? Because the Tome of Champions 2019 is what we got in December for Warcry. And what it involved was all the things that were released in 2019. Okay.
Okay.
So like when you pick up that, you gain like all of the card sets that were released in that year are included in that book.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would say is I think there is warrant to include everything that's been released in White Dwarf that is rules crunch
Mm-hmm.
in an annual style format in the next GHB.
Yep, sure. Yep.
And so they can grab all of like the Fire Slayers and the Night Haunt and the OBR and the I guess Stormcast Eternals happened before that, but you get the idea. Sure. Like the Hallowed Knight stuff. Like all of that stuff, collect them together and slap in the GHB and throw points on that stuff.
Okay.
That's low-hanging fruit. In one sense, they're like they're reusing content that they already have. They have an opportunity to rebalance it because basically it's been beta tested in the White Dwarf. They can get feedback potentially from users.
Because the other one you're not remembering is Slanesh, the universally hated one.
Right. And Slanesh, I'm choosing to ignore the Selesky host. No, but the key is that what they can do is they can take the initial contact with that thing from White Dwarf and make adjustments to it in the reprint for the GHB.
Yeah, I agree. And I'd love to see a Selesky host back in there because the idea of Celeste's host was a really cool idea. It's just dumbly broken now post errata. Right? So like, but the concept of Celeste having her own host isn't like innately wrong. She's like he. They're one of the coolest couples in Warhammer.
Right.
And they're a great chance to like, okay, you did it the first time. Not quite there, but great idea. Execution leaves something to be desired. Now put it back in there and actually give it like command traits and artifacts because you don't have those in the current Celeste host. Right. And get rid of the dumb double depravity rule. Right.
And they can keep these year to year or not. And so I'm thinking about like Ironjaw's allegiance, right? Ironjaw stayed multiple years. Their allegiance abilities were in the GHB.
Sure.
And so if they wanted to just roll those into the next year for some stuff, they could keep that content in there or not, right? Until the next printing of a book when that can get rolled into the main book. And so it can become this malleable format for content.
The other challenge is if you don't do this, then it's easy for people to get lost because they'll go to a game and somebody will be like, I'm playing this thing. And they'll be like, what the hell are you talking about? I've never heard of this. Oh, it was from a White Dwarf 15 months ago. Like, that's the world we're going to live in. If that happens.
Or the other thing is this. No, because the FAQ said that if it's not in the most recent GHB, if that's been printed after the White Dwarf or whatever the publication date is, and it hasn't been included in the GHB, it's not legal.
Yeah, I understand
so
that.
What ends up
so imagine they put just points
anything in the White Dwarves. Well, what happens is everything in the White Dwarves then basically has an expiration date on it.
Unless it's just included in the GHB. That's not necessarily true. Because they do sometimes put the points in the GHB for this stuff.
I agree, and that's what I'm
And if
saying.
they
Is
do,
that,
that's your worst case scenario. That's where you get somebody
oh
walking
yeah,
up to a table. This is what I'm describing, right?
okay,
And
yeah,
saying, where did that come from? Well, it's from
yeah.
rules from a white dwarf 15 months ago. See, here's the points value. But that doesn't tell me anything. I read it in the list and I go, what the heck is that? And
Like,
where do I find it?
but do any of those exist that have been hangers on from like prior publications? I know like Skybound Slayers of Stormcast Eternals came that like that has maintained points in the GHB even though it was printed in like the order book. Like the Forces of Order from first edition
Sure.
uh AOS. Like I know that has persisted every year because why not? But I don't know of anything else that has been like perennial like what
There's
you're
no reason to
describing.
think they couldn't do that if they wanted. And if they're going to keep them around, then the answer is please put them into the GHB so the rules are there. I agree with what AOS coach said in the chat just now, which is as a TO trying to get all the white dwarf battalions to confirm legal lists sucks. Yes, because he's got to go figure out where the heck that thing is from, find the
Right.
battalion, and then
And
check to
then
see if it's legal, right? And it's
yep,
just he's on
yep,
like a scavenger hunt for
yep,
checking legality of lists. That's garbo to make people do that, right?
yep. I agree completely. I would love if the battalions that were included in the dual boxes were also included.
Mm-hmm.
I would love that. I know that maybe not everybody feels that, but like I would love to know that my Aether War battalion, the Profiteer one, or the Prospector one, has like longevity beyond this GHB. Because right
Sure,
now, basically, everything that releases with points basically only has longevity until the next GHB.
sure.
And so it would be wonderful if that stuff, like from the prior year, was rolled into the next GHB to at least give it one more year of lifespan.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, realistically, you can always you can drop it if you need to at some point. But this is a pretty skinny book, and it's not like we're talking about a lot of these pages as you look through here have room,
Yeah.
like where you could expand on the bottom of the page, right?
Yep.
So it's
Yep.
not like they're really, it's not like they're scratching for stuff here, right?
Right. And like you could do like as people pointed out, like you could do stuff like the Legion of Grief and the stuff that showed up in Forbidden Power.
Sure.
Like if you wanted to redo the city of Lethis, like you could just roll all that in for the next year into this other product and basically they're just revising content that they already have.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so it just becomes its own vehicle, like of perpetuating that content. So I don't know. I just like this seems like low hanging fruit to me, and it makes sense. It's not new. They're not having to design anything
Mm-hmm.
for the GHB at this point. They're just collecting what's already been done.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna here's mine. You ready?
Yep, hit me.
Okay. Jettison meeting engagements. Okay. But even
Sure,
if you don't, as long as we're just going to keep beta testing stuff in the GHB like we did with meeting
sure,
engagements, okay?
sure.
Then give me my APOC
Yep, yep,
uh
yep.
uh
Your
in
mass
here.
combat
Yep.
format.
Yep. Yep. Give me the way to play 10,000 points on a side, right?
Sure.
In the relatively same amount of time. And use that to beta test it to release the eventual product.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh
I don't
and
disagree with that.
sure. Again,
Uh,
if we're stick it in the narrative section. That's where it belongs,
yeah,
right? Because it's
yeah.
not a matched play thing.
No, no.
Part of the problem with meeting engagements, I think, is that they tried to put it under the match, like it's meeting engagements in this book is sitting under like the match play section, and nice try, but no, it's just not. Like I've never thought to myself, not once, I want to get a good competitive game on. Let me go get out the
Of
meeting
1,000
engagements
points.
rules. Okay, that's
Okay,
just not in my head. No, like
right.
what I've thought. Let's play 1,000 point game competitively. And by the way, it's just called play it at 1,000 points. There's rules for that already, and they work
Yeah,
basically fine.
yeah,
Okay. Yes, some things are better and some things are worse, as one would expect when you screw around with the points total of your army. That's
yeah.
what happens. And so, like my argument here is, it should have this kind of thing should be a narrative thing. That's what
Yeah.
that's what you're doing when you do
Right.
this, right?
Right. Right.
So
Right. Right.
like if meeting engagements are there, I have no problem with it as a concept. It just feels like it would have actually had more legs if they had just made it sat it in the narrative play section. Still uses points. You can use points in the
Yep.
narrative section. Nothing's wrong with that. As they mentioned many times in on many of their streams, like lots of people combine these things together. So it's a narrative thing that
Yep.
that gives more of a framing as to why things don't show up all at once, and using different special rules and stuff like that. And that would be a great way to include a new APOC thing. Because again,
Mhm.
I'm not going to think I want to play a competitive game. Let me get 10,000 points out, right?
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
and so, I think this could be if you keep meeting engagements, which again, I don't have any love for it, but I know lots of people do. There's some people sounding off in the comments for it. I'm all about that. I love people repping what they like. Great. So reprint it, put it in the narrative section, and beef it up and correct some of the obvious flaws it had on its initial release. All
Yeah.
right.
No, I totally agree with that.
And just
Yep.
sort of rebalance it and add to it, enrich it. Right.
Yep. Yeah, I love lots of like exploratory new content. Like it
Sure.
feels like that's what the GHB should be doing.
Yes.
Um yeah.
No, I agree. I like, in my mind, this book has 2 points.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
One is to beta test and explore new content, largely in a non-competitive way.
Yep.
Okay. Give us fun other ways to use our models. That's high value.
Yep.
Giving me additional modalities for the use of my figs in a book that I was probably going to buy for its match play features, that is
Yep.
value add, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
letting me play in different narrative scenarios, in different wildly different crazy points things, right?
Yep.
All of that, that I think is highly valuable, right? So good.
Yep.
That's one side of this coin. The other side of the coin of the GHB is to be the update, collation, collection, rebalance point in the year. That's where it leads to what you're talking about, right?
Yep.
Where include the battalions, include those things, just in the same way we update all the points. And
Right.
it's this moment for us to all stop, take a breath, and reset right into a sort of new match play environment, right? That would
Yep.
be the way to go there.
Yep. Totally agree with that. Yep.
Okay. So, okay. Let's get into some deets now. All right?
Okay.
Okay, the open play stuff is only 14 pages. And it's basically the open war army generator, terrain, the close quarters battle thing, and the hidden agendas.
Yep.
Okay? I don't mind any of the open play stuff. I can't imagine I would ever use it. There's got to be somebody out there who likes it. The only part of the open play stuff, I mean, I've read through all this. The only part of it that I thought was just like, I don't care, was the like close quarters battle generator.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, don't care. I like
Yep.
all the hidden agendas. That's all fine. I like the open war cards and stuff are all cool. The sort of version of those, and it's a relatively small part of the book. Leave
Yep.
it in there. Great. Okay. Good stuff. I mean, I don't know that I would beef it out in any way. Is there anything we'd want to see there?
I don't know, just like random, like I could see a world of like random setup stuff.
Okay.
Like I think about the randomized cards for Warcry, in like the open play format, right? I could see them doing something more with like randomized like scenario generation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly what that is, but I could imagine a world where it's a bunch of charts that you roll on and that generate different formats.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so let's talk about narrative because I feel like this is the richest sort of place for expansion. So obviously
Totally.
in this one they had Streets of Death. Probably
Yep.
doesn't need to be reprinted. I mean, some of these things they can go. As has been pointed out, they've spent the GHBs like cycling through these concepts 16, 17, 18, 19, right? So
Yep.
like we had a siege and we had streets and we had Sky Battles and so on and so forth. It all Sky Battles wasn't in GHB, but it came out,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So the I think that you can. It's good enough to leave this in here. We had the arcane objectives, which were fine.
Yep.
The regiments of renown, and then you have a big whole thing about Elixia, the Shattered City, right? And so that is the
Sure.
that's this whole thing, right? So you got Elixia, and then
Yep.
you've got a bunch of battle plans for Elixia, right? And then you have the whole raid and ambush, and then naming and the mercenary companies. Which
Yep.
it's very funny to me that the mercenary company showed up under narrative, but the meeting engagements was under match play. But at any rate, proving, I guess, that there is a gray line between this stuff.
Indeed. Indeed.
Uh, I would. I think honestly, a lot of that wouldn't come forward. Almost all of that gets. Almost all of that gets jettisoned. Okay.
Sure. Sure.
I do like the idea of them picking a city and having a series of uh, battle plans and narrative and story around it.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure. Hey, can I do a pitch for you?
I'm ready.
Okay. So let's take that idea and build it out, but actually look at like the way that Firestorm worked.
Okay.
So what if they took an area of the mortal realms with appropriate cities, and what they did was they basically included a narrative campaign style with kind of developed narrative engagement, storyboard, map, combat rules, whatever. And they kind of blew that out and explored that format and system and style in a bunch of these different narrative settings for a couple of years, perfected it, and then spun it off as its own product, its own campaign product.
So you got a couple years of GHB leading up to like Firestorm 2 Electric Boogaloo, right?
Right. But with like hyper refined, like intentionally developed, tested over multiple years to really like hone the edge on the system.
Well, you got to exactly where I was going to go. You're attacking it slightly differently, but you're kind of exactly where I was going to say. Let's use the GHB narrative section to explore to deep dive, explore some cool stuff.
Yep.
About areas of the mortal realms we haven't been to. Okay.
Yeah.
So like they had the battle for Elixia there. So let's have a similar narrative structure, but in a less explored realm. So right now we've got the elves launching. They knew the elves were launching. Right around, and they knew Heish was going to be a big area. Cool. Let's do a series of narratives in Heish. It doesn't need to be like a battle for one city. It can be like the battle of the whatever spires, right? Some area of like active realm magic, and we use each narrative battle to track across different parts of Heish, explore the terrain, have cool magical rules that show how that area and Heish in general and the order and the logic of the realm influences the battlefield. And I think that would be a really neat scenario. It'd be well aligned with the elves, right? And I think that, like, in other words, just take a section each year. And by the way, my idea could lead up to your idea, right? Because in here we could have a fight that's in the cities, or a fight that's on plains, or whatever, you know what I'm saying, or that involves a city or something like that, or a collection of civilizations or whatever. And but this would give us another window into actually exploring through play an area of the mortal realms that is less
I agree completely. And like that's what I was partially saying is that like each GHB then serves its own kind of like in-world exploration function, but the series of those, what they're going to do is they're going to hone the system that's being developed itself.
Right. So, when I think about the other things in narrative, right?
Yep.
Which, by the way, I think the only thing in there that should stay is the name generator.
Really? So, like, what would you do with the mercenaries? Would you just jettison mercenaries?
No, I'd move them into match play where they belong.
Okay, that's fair. Like I actually really, really like.
They are a match. That's fine. I'm not against them. I'm just saying they're a matched play convention. Like they absolutely are. They rely on pulling your command points, and they have they feel very matched play-y.
Very mechanical in how they come.
Yes.
not narrative. Yes,
Right.
I agree.
Like I get it. They have names. They're cool. They're named mercenary companies. Okay, that's fine. They still feel like a matched play rule,
Yep.
right? Um, so I just I whatever.
You know what else would be awesome?
I like the name generators because I've always loved name generators. And I think name generators are super fun. That's all.
You know what else would be awesome?
Okay.
Additional artifacts.
Like realm artifacts round 2. Is that what we're saying
Maybe
here?
no.
This time it's
Like,
personal.
in narrative. So like artifacts from the region, the Red Scar Plateau of Akshia.
Narrative only artifacts.
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
valid in matched play, but
Right.
highly
Right.
specific to the
Region.
Sure. Tie
Right.
it into the region I just like or whatever we're deep diving
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it.
Let's
Love
play.
the idea.
Let's play in that space. Like if we're
Yep.
gonna play in the space, let's play in that space.
Yep. So we don't worry
Um,
like these artifacts have nothing to do with matched play. They're not
Right.
selectable. We don't have to worry
Right.
about dumb balance and is it competitive and blah blah blah
Yep.
blah blah. Who cares? Print some fun narrative artifacts that are just awesome and cool and really unique. And again, tell the story of that place. I love that idea.
Right.
Yep. I think that's a great idea, Tom. If we're gonna pick a new zone to fight in, I don't know what to call it, terrain, biome, something.
Biome. Yeah.
Okay, why not? Sure. So we've done sky, we've done cities, we've done sieges, we've done all this stuff. Okay. So here's the question, Tom: do we go to the last frontier?
Of course we do.
Do we go to sea battles?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Now, are you talking
Above or below the water?
above or below? Right. Like
Yes.
that's the question that I want. Are we talking about like boarding party
Yes.
type sea battles,
Yes.
or are we talking about under the sea?
Yes.
Oh.
I am talking about Seventh Sea, Seventh Sea. I'm talking about Black Flag. I'm talking about whatever. Pick your thing. All that. By the way,
Yep.
we'll just make Aaron Bostate. We'll make his whole year because he always does the sea battle for the narrative at
Yep.
Nova.
Yep.
So give us some fun stuff for that. Also, by the by, underwater. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I want to see rules for underwater battles. Now, how does this work? How do we get things happening underwater? Well, lots of forces will have water. We think there's a new sea army coming. That's been our prediction for a long time.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
And
Sure.
so let's go to I like how everybody thought I was going to say sea or space,
Yeah,
the
space,
final
yeah.
frontier because I said
on
no,
on
because there is no space in the mortal realms. Space is just Aesir.
yes, like spaceship Sigmar. No, but or space station Sigmar. No, but at the same time, like I'm gonna say no to underwater.
All right, I really want underwater battles. I think it'd be
I don't
amazing.
care about underwater. You can get out of here. I not only do I want like ship battles.
Sure, which I think we all want.
Yeah, like I think that they need to build like it needs to involve a system of like building your war vessel
Mm-hmm.
with like a mechanical stuff, and then you have to like you actually like like you can garrison some ships, and so like you basically take KO,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And what happened with KO, and you build that out across a bunch of armies.
Sure.
And so you make like a generic like war vessel, right? And then you like a war vessel template that can be then skinned to any of the armies that you can build out the models. Like it would just be the best. The best.
Yeah. I think that is I'm just saying I would love underwater stuff too. But if you made me pick, if you said, Vince, you can only have one of these two things.
Yes, and I want basically the Realms at War Cogfort idea,
Sure.
but in boats.
As a vote, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you said, Vince, you got to choose. You can have either underwater fights or sea ship battles. I'm picking ship battles every time.
Right.
Because yeah, the like just like they do with the Nova narrative, where he has the big boats that he built out and he lets everybody uses, which are amazing. Aaron did a fantastic job with that. It's always a super cool game. I want to see people going overboard. I want to see
Yes.
Kraken attacks. I want to see stormy seas. I want to see getting broadsided and unleashing cannonballs into the enemy hull. Like
There's
yes,
there's roaming Charybdises
sure, absolutely. Look,
because the roaming monsters, kind of like Warcry has the roaming monsters.
yep,
You
absolutely,
just get that with Charybdises.
yep. Now
Yep.
look, I know a lot of people don't love that third Pirates of the Caribbean movie, okay, and that's fine.
Sure,
It's
go
fine.
on.
But I absolutely love the scene where like the two now heroic ships or whatever, the Black Pearl and Davy Jones's ship, whatever,
Right.
uh now under the control of the other character, come up and like just sail by and broadside the East India Tea Company's ship, and just like as he's walking down the stairs and the cannonballs are going through and it's all in slow motion and stuff. That's like the most amazing thing. Watching those ships just unleash like 30, 40, 50 cannons into another ship, into another galleon, is the coolest thing in the world.
Okay.
So that.
Can I pitch this differently
Okay.
so that people can like warm to it? Because I think they're thinking too much of like KO type of rules. Okay. Imagine if you had a piece of terrain that you could control the movement on, that your troops could be on.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, that brings us to another thing that people have mentioned in the comments that was absolutely on my mind as well. I mean, we're going to talk about terrain rules in a second, but
Right.
just in the narrative section, terrain that moves, walking. So not a walking monster. We know for a fact that a lot of the realm itself in the Mortal Realms is active, and will actually like do things. Will be an active participant. Like the realms themselves are alive with magic, right? And so Attic said, so Dreadfleet, and my answer is yeah, kinda. But where I also get to use all my other troops too, and go board enemy troops,
Right.
and that stuff.
Right.
I just want the thing Aaron runs at Nova as in the narrative event to have rules in here. And like, since it's a narrative thing, you could just say build boats or make boats somehow. Like you make it happen. Again, this isn't happening at tournaments. The whole idea here it's a narrative thing. And I like who doesn't want an excuse to build a big ship? So yes, walking, moving terrain seems like a great thing to add into the narrative. And again, you could have them by realm, different types of walking terrain, what they do. Some could be aggressive, some could be helpful, some could be indifferent, some could be brought under control and stuff like that. I think that would be amazing.
Yep.
So,
all of that.
Yeah. 100%. There you go. Why somebody said why wouldn't Stormcast just drop in from the sky and explode boats? They would just drop in on lightning bolts and try to jump on your boat, assuming they can within 9 inches or something.
Right.
Which is going to be tough on a boat. But I'm okay with that. If they do that, heck yeah, that's how you board. That's how Stormcast board a boat. I can't you like you can see them people fighting toward the back of the boat and they look up toward the prow and then like a lightning bolt strikes and then like there's the one Stormcast and behind them are all the others. Like, oh, we've got a boarding party. And because the boats are all preternaturally tough because it's the Mortal Realms and things are meant to survive this.
Because I think somebody's talking about Stephen Foot's like real life Dreadfleet.
Yeah, he built like real size Dreadfleet stuff. Yes.
Yeah, in his driveway. Yeah, that. Yep. Let's do it. Like these are narrative rules, right? Let's play in this space.
Absolutely.
Like it's part of the legacy of what Warhammer is. Let's go crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I think that's a good one. The one that I would love to see in the future, but I don't think needs to happen here. But since we'll mention it, Davis had just said God Beast Battle, where you just rebrand the Monster Fight board game. I actually want to change that slightly. What I'd love to see in like GHB 2021, it's not my top idea, but I want to see battles on the God Beast. Like that's the actual fighting location. You understand what I mean?
The realm, the battlefield, your 6x4 is on the back of a God Beast.
Correct. And the God Beast you're on has different effects on the battle. All right? Like they're big enough that they basically don't notice you walking around on their back and having a fight because you're little more than fleas to these creatures, right? It takes somebody like Nagash or Archeon or Sigmar to go tame or Grimnir or whatever, like one of the gods to go
Yep.
tame a god beast. But just like you can be, they give like 6 different god beasts who are still out and around and moving around, and you're on their back fighting. Okay, and
Yep.
they're that big, like just the scale of what would become, right? Because it would impress that like you're not just on the 6x4 table isn't the god beast. The 6x4 table is some small
Yeah.
section
It's
of the
like a
god beast.
shoulder plate of the god
Right.
beast.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Like that sounds incredible. And then you could have all the special rules to
Yep.
make it to
Yep.
make it
Like, and you could like roll on a
feel
table
like that.
based on whatever the god beast is doing, and so like one roll
Yeah.
could be like lurching ground,
Yeah, yeah.
and so then like the ground tips and everybody slides 8 inches one direction.
Sure, sure. Or yeah, whatever. Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Yes.
All non-flying models.
Non-flyers
Yeah.
slide 8 inches in a randomly generated dice direction.
Sure. It just stuff like that sounds so much fun, right? Like that feels
Again,
like what
for narrative battles, I'm in. Let's do it.
that's what these things should be, right? We should be able to
Right.
tell. What I want to see them lean into is the great stories of the mortal realms. Like this is not medieval Europe,
Right.
okay?
Right.
These are 9 realms of I'm counting chaos of insane magical potency. It's Planescape on on meth, right? Like it should be
Yep.
it should be up at that level where
Yep.
we're really pulling all those crazy things.
Yeah, like this is what your narrative game should be about, right?
So, oh, Scott had said, is there a god beast large enough to have a moving city on it? Yes, 100%. I mean, the god beasts are like they're depicted in a lot of stories as just being beyond massive, like things that are like the original god beast of the Gargants vomited in the mythological story, vomited the entire giant race into the
Right.
world.
Right.
Like he threw them up.
Yes.
Okay. In a very sort of Greek mythological
Yeah.
story. But like that's the story he's portrayed.
Right.
Right.
They're really big. They're
so
really...
so can they fit a city on there? Yes. If you can vomit a race of giants out, then you're big enough to have a fight on your back and nobody notices. Again, it's literally like the people should be fleas to a human. Right? Like almost unnoticeable.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, there you go. And yes, I see Ninja in the comments, and yes, I did specifically say newsy news, and that was just for you, buddy. I was hoping you'd catch that. So at any rate, yeah, I think that would all be the amazing stuff to pack the narrative section with. That all sounds fun. That all sounds worth exploring. That all sounds.
We're gonna fix match play now.
Match play, yes. Okay. Question 1. Do we get 2020 versions of the battle plans, or are they good enough? Do we actually try to just ride the 2019 and 2018 versions? Do we actually need to change anything?
We have 18 match play battle plans that have been printed. Is that correct?
Basically, there are 2 more that are in
like
Malign Sorcery.
Malign Sorcery, yeah. Whatever. That doesn't matter.
They're match play valid, but sure.
Yes, they are, but no tournament is buying 100 Malign Sorcery boxes so they can get Purple Suns for all of them.
Well,
I mean, that's just not happening.
Sucks to your ass, Mar. I don't know what to tell you. That's a real shame because a smaller tournament could. You can get 30. Everybody bring your own Purple Sun. Problem solved. We all have them. Done and dusted. At any rate, I get it. Yes. Let's say 18 or 20. Pick your number, but yes, that's how many there are.
Yeah. So I think we're good. What you do is instead of making them different, you do something else. Oh, I know what you do. I got it. You rotate secondary objectives every year. That's what you do.
Okay.
And so what you do is you come up with an entirely new list of secondary objectives or how the secondary objectives function every year. And we ride this for a couple years. And so the diversity of objectives, like the scenarios, and you can tweak base rules on the objectives themselves, right? Mm-hmm. Especially if we're tweaking a game book separate.
Okay.
You can adjust those, but what you do in the GHB is you lean into the secondary objective market and basically rewrite them and use that to help mix up the actual match play experience every year.
Okay. Here's my argument. Unless a new gaming book is going to come out right on the back of this,
Yeah.
which we can talk about.
Yep.
Here's my honest answer.
Yep.
I would rather that. First of all, I wish they would just jettison Total Commitment and shoot it in the head. Okay, it's the one I hate. So like, it either like keep a thing called Total Commitment if you want, but it doesn't work like that anymore.
Yeah.
Okay?
For me, it's shoot the bouncing one in the head.
Oh, come on now. Relocation Orb is fun. It doesn't specifically hurt anyone's army. And
it's just
COs that find it
random.
annoying just
it's
don't
like
use
let's
it.
roll random dice to see who
Yes,
wins.
it's very wonky, but people I am one of those people who love it, and I know I'm not alone. The problem with Total Commitment is it's a different sort of bad.
It's a great narrative play scenario.
I think Relocation Orb is a perfectly fine match play scenario. I think you are a negative Nancy. But I think that Total Commitment is bad because it specifically hurts armies that don't and can't afford to be hurt and shouldn't be hurt in a way that's just completely game breaking to them. That's just eliminating most of their allegiance rules for no reason.
I think Relocation Orb hurts armies that don't have high mobility options.
It doesn't get the... Shut up. It walks around in a pretty reasonably tight path in its new version. And by the by, it doesn't literally say, hey, the thing you see printed on your allegiance abilities, no, that doesn't do anything.
Relocation Orb is bad for slow armies, period.
Oh, God. Okay, sure. All the scenarios have tilts that they're somewhat good or somewhat bad. Total Commitment is a complete step apart. All right? And first of all, I don't think either of the two of them should honestly be in most like competitive tournaments. So we can just get that out there. I don't think that Relocation Orb's good generally as a competitive tournament game. That being said,
Agreed.
I do like it as a matched play scenario. I think if you've got 18 of these, and the average match play tournament's 5, if we've got like 15 that feel pretty match play ready, we're in a pretty good place.
Right? No, I agree with that. Yep.
Okay. All right. So here's my argument. Unless we're going to replace the gaming book like right away, here's what I don't want to have happen is they come out with, because some of the 2018 versions of these things I still find highly valuable.
Right.
Right. Especially when not all tournaments have the space to run. Sometimes you need to switch because you need to do the more horizontal or diagonal deployment ones as opposed to the vertical deployment ones, right? The lengthwise table deployment. Yeah.
Yep.
You get what I'm saying?
I do.
And when tournaments can't do that, sometimes you can fall back between like the 2018 and the 2019 versions. Yep. You can usually find it so you don't have to be trying to like.
Right.
It just gets really annoying at a tournament when the tables are touched against each other and you're trying to like, hold on, let me move my guys here. You know, like it doesn't work. So I like actually them having those sort of different versions of those things, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And if they come out with like 2020 versions of it. Okay, so now do we just have what new spins can we reasonably do on these scenarios?
No, what you do is you don't change the core mechanics. You change like the objective claiming rules. And so rather than like so here's a possibility. Here's some design space we haven't explored in. It's the whoever has more units within 6 inches of the objective.
You're saying play with different things like that?
Yeah. You actually you change claim.
Yeah, sure. Rules. Like we already do with the hero-based scenarios, right? Because it says jettison normal rules, and now here's this.
Yep. You can rotate. You can take the core of what's there, and you rotate through some of them, and that's a very easy way to like. You could have like 6 different sets of claim rules, right? We already do heroes in battle line, or item bearers or people who are wizards. Like we have special kind of rules around that. You could do number of units, which I think would be really interesting. Because that like MSU actually becomes valuable then.
Okay.
Not doing like horde armies of blocks of 40, 50, 60
Sure.
plus models.
It would be
Which
very much an
generally,
anti-horde scenario. Yes.
right, which generally win right now. Like
Yeah.
that's generally like the default is like large block units, and then this would skew the other way. And just mix some of that in. And I think that you could generate a couple years of variable scenarios just on mixing up some of that in the midst of the normal scenarios that exist right now.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to say. If we're going to generate
Okay.
6 new scenarios,
Okay.
then they have to have a reason to exist. I think
Sure.
you're 50% toward you're 50% toward a good idea.
Okay, so what's the other half?
Okay, here's the other half. We need to have multiple victory point conditions on within the mission. So
not just the like objective you're trying to hold.
Correct. Yep, that's right. So I'll see if I can break this out, but this will be very familiar to you if you've ever played the
Wartime.
Well, not just more sure, but yes, of course. But I was going to say if you've ever played the GHB 20, God, what year was that now? I use the cards all the time. 2018, 2017? I think it was 2017.
20 I think it was the 20 I think you're going to say the 2018 the Legions of Death, not the or the whatever the multiplayer format, right?
Correct. They had Coalition of Death and Triumphant Treachery, both of which had multiplayer scenarios that function like this. I don't remember if it was 2017 or 2018. Doesn't matter.
You gain bonus points for killing general, bonus points for holding the objective.
Well, so there's all sorts of different ways to do it. Yes.
Yeah.
So effectively, every scenario in there still had an objective capture thing.
Right.
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 Where it was like just like we see now, capture an objective, blah blah blah, bodies, blah blah blah, 1 point a turn, 2 points a turn, points equal to their victory, the current turn number. I don't care. Whatever. Right? All that stuff is just whatever. Thank you, Cinderfall. Cinderfall said 2017. Thank you. So, but then they also have lots of other takes. So, 1 victory point per 5 wounds you deal. Okay? 1 victory point if you kill the enemy general, or in Coalition of Death, it was like a bonus 1 if you kill an enemy warlord. Okay, cool. 1 victory point if you kill any model with 10 or more wounds. Okay? 1 victory point for every unit alive in the enemy deployment zone. Your unit alive in the enemy deployment zone at the end of the game. Okay? Or 1 point for every unit of yours alive in your deployment zone at the end of the game. Okay? And you need to be careful with these because it can get like, you don't want to get too crazy. And you don't want too many of them because then it can get hard to track.
But just like 3 of them.
Sure, but 2 or 3 actually makes the game much more interesting because it gives you multiple routes to victory. Now you need to think about the secondary consequences. For example, like let's say you go for the like 1 victory point per 5 or 10 wounds you dealt in a battle round, or sorry, in a turn. Not in a battle round, in a turn. So at the end of your turn, you would count up your objective points and you would count up how many wounds you successfully dealt. Right? Okay. One, that is a lot of bookkeeping. I'll openly admit.
It's ridiculous. Yes.
Right? Now, I do it with my group because we that is the scenarios, by the way, that we use almost constantly.
Sure.
90% of the scenarios we use are just those scenarios or changes to or like modifications of those scenarios because we're always playing 3 and 4 player games.
Right.
Okay. And some of those victory points that you get from that stuff is huge. Like in a kill scenario, it will almost always run up over the top of the objectives. Right? Which means that suddenly the more offensive armies that are just glass cannons can go in and kill hard, right? But have to be careful they don't lose too much themselves or they'll feed the enemy victory points. Right? You have to be very careful with like your chaff units because then you're just feeding chaff units become have a negative to them. Because they just feed the enemy victory points, right? One of the classic ways to win a game with an alpha block strategy is you move your anvils onto the objectives, and then you just surround them with chaff and say, good luck, you'll never get me off of this in time, suck it. Okay? And the reality is the other person, in a scenario like this where you have that as a secondary objective, that's not a winner.
Right, because you're feeding them, like
because you're sitting there gaining 1-2 points a turn, they're gaining tons more by just chewing your chaff up. Right?
Yep.
So I love the idea of having those kinds of things. Again, just be aware of what you're doing. So don't put the killing a bunch of stuff equals more victory points in all 6 new scenarios.
Right.
That's bad,
Right.
right? Because
Right.
then the good army becomes the one that kills the most. Don't
Right.
put the one that's just about mobility or surviving or whatever. Like,
Right.
mix them up, right?
You mix them up, put secondary or tertiary scoring, you know, conditions in each scenario, bake them in, and mix them up, and so you have to have a nice mix of flexibility in order to reliably do well at all scenarios.
Right. Sure, there could
Um,
be one where it's like you get a victory point for every hero you kill. So,
yep,
like, okay, that's influencing to certain forces. People like KO or people who have a lot of
yep,
power
like
projection,
shooting armies.
yep,
Yep,
are going to
yep,
be stronger, right? You could
yep.
have one that's all about doing a lot of wounds. You could have one that's blah 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 blah. I mean, we could sit here and design 50 of these, and I don't care. Pick the good ones. Pick the
Right,
good 6 out of the 50 we could generate in the next 10 minutes, right?
right, right.
And mix them up. And to me, what that says is that actually is a reason to create some new that actually makes it so we uh we have to have different types of armies. It can each one can incentivize a different type of army. This is a sort of a kill army incentive, and this is an anvil army objective incentive, and this is a very mobile
Yep,
army objective, and this one's more shooty based, and so on, right?
yep. And if
And
anybody has a problem, sorry, go ahead.
I would just say that actually is a reason to make 6 new scenarios. That's my point, because
Sure.
just slightly evolving these, if you're gonna do that, just reprint them and say these are the updated versions. 2018 no longer exists. These are
Yeah,
2019 and
yeah,
2020. We've reprinted them completely, and these are just now the 12 new
yep,
valid scenarios with
yep,
refreshed rules, right?
yep.
And then there's the 6 in the core book that are evergreen.
Yeah, if anybody questions whether something like this can work, like you just have to look as far as Adepticon, which is one of the largest events in the world, and in some years it's been the largest event in the world. If for its championship, it has consistently had, you know, like scenarios that have primary objectives, primary scoring system,
Mm-hmm.
and then almost all of them have a secondary scoring system, right? And a tertiary function, which is like a secondary objective system.
Yep.
Um, and that's like that was just so basically what it said is play the scenario as this in the book, but then add these 2 other things.
Yeah, sure.
And
And
that's run like that for 4 years, very successfully.
sure.
What I would do is I would just roll that into the GHB. It's the scenarios in the GHB themselves, and then you could rotate through some of that every year to keep it mixed up.
Yeah, and so let me tackle a couple of things I see in the comments here. Like some people
Yeah,
are mentioning the WTC system of 20.0. I don't really want 20.0, and I don't like 20.0 systems anymore, but I get what you're going for. I'm not saying, and I don't want these to be chosen secondary type of things. Like I don't like things
right.
where you actively choose this stuff. I don't like when they use the hidden agendas or whatever they are that GW has, and they let you just choose every round. If the secondaries are going to be there, they have to be either out of your control and random, like David does at NashCon, or they should just be part of the scenario and tailored to be a holistic part of it.
Yeah,
Now, because that then makes it so you can't just always take the win more button on your army that's tilted towards your force, right? Because
right,
if you're really good at surviving, you're always just going to take the survival secondary or whatever. Okay.
right, right.
The what I'm advocating for here is not to have them blown out like they are right now, where you know right now, like I said, the kill points one will just run way over the objective one. Okay, great. So
Right.
they should probably be brought more in line. And Cinderfall said he's worried about complexity, right? Because he thinks that like you have to keep these relatively simple. I don't disagree with that. I think you can. Let me say it this way: I play with a very, very beer and pretzels group. Okay, I'm not meaning that insultingly. That's just like that's
No.
their fun of why we get together and play.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't to have like some super ultra competitive experience, right? They just want to sit down. We want to drink beers. We're going to talk about some stuff. We're going to push some figs around and have some good fights and roll some dice. We
Yep.
use these things that have 2 or 3 victory conditions every game, and we've never had a problem with it. Even in the middle of like half paying attention, and honestly
Right.
like talking about Castlevania or something, right? Or what we
Sure.
just watched on Netflix, and
Yep.
people drinking beers and hanging out. we still are able to keep track of these. And the key with them is they need to be relatively simple. Like, one victory point per each hero you kill is not adding a lot of bookkeeping or mental weight onto what you did there, right?
No. Nope.
If you want a fun, like if you want a non-bookkeepy version of the wounding one, okay,
Yep.
it could be something like a victory point if you did more than 10 or 20 wounds or destroyed a unit or something like that. So it's a light switch, right? Once you cross the threshold, you're in. You got the VP.
Yeah. You just do something like if you destroyed a unit.
Yeah, sure. The more light switchy you made them, right, the easier thing. I would want these to be simple. The goal isn't to add complexity. The goal is to add dynamism in your paths to victory in the scenario. That's a reason to play this. That's a reason to generate 6 new scenarios. And I think that most people, if not all the players of this game, are more than capable of keeping like a simple secondary factor in their head.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I really do, because I've seen all these tournaments that use secondaries of varying types, and even tertiary sometimes, and I've seen there are scenarios when we go play at Holy Havoc. There are 4 different objectives.
There are so many objectives.
Okay. And I don't mean objectives on the table. I mean there are 4
scoring
things you do in every single round. Okay. That's a lot to keep track of.
It's so insane.
So I'm not like and so I think that like having played these types of scenarios constantly in fluffy, low competition, just out for fun games where we're not taking competitive armies often and we're playing 3 and 4 players or whatever. We do these even with 2, we'll often use these. It tells me it's perfectly handleable and would add a lot of interest to the game. So
again, you're going for dynamism, not complexity.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that that's really the key. Like, you can screw these up. There are bad versions of all of this. Right?
Because as it is right now, everything is almost every scenario is, can you sit on a point longer than the enemy?
Right. Yep.
Like, and
or get to unclaimed points faster than enemies.
And get to unclaimed points faster and hold those, or get to unclaimed points that move before your enemy. Or can you push your enemy off points that they're sitting on? Like that is the entire scoring picture right now for basically all match play. And so the idea would be to add but say yes, that, and this. So, which is still different than secondary objectives, how they currently exist in the game and how they're realized in events.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So agreed with that totally. All right. Oh, somebody asked what tournament uses the 4 types, the holy events. So this is Steve Herner, his events, which would be Holy Havoc and Holy Wars. And there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I very much agree with the flag you just planted, Tom, and I think this is the sort of dynamism that we would need. And it's funny because Tyler Emerson, Scrubby and Wells, friend of the show, Tyler Emerson, we've talked a lot about actually on our own redesigning all of the existing scenarios.
Right. We have.
Yep. With a added secondary in there of this type, right? Like, what if we made a 0.1 version of each of the scenarios, right?
Right.
So you have, take and hold, blah 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 .1, right?
Yeah.
And what's added is that thing, and just like throw it out there and see if people like it, just as a sort of experiment. But never had the time. So, and I don't imagine myself having the time anytime soon. But we'll see what happens. There you go.
Sure.
All right. Shall we close out here, Tom, and talk about some points?
Sure.
Okay. Let's talk about points that need to be changed. The way I would like to break this down is let's go every war scroll by every war scroll. No. We're not going to do that. Okay. Let's start with the things you feel are the most egregious. Let's just start a hit list here because there's a million of these things everybody's going to have. All right. What are your current biggest offenders? Everybody's got their own personal list. Most of our lists
points adjustments or that need war scroll adjustments.
They need points adjustments, purely points adjustments. These are things that the problems are going to be solved based on points. Some things can't be. They just need war scrolls rewritten, right? Like Cygor's a great example. There's not a cheap enough world where he suddenly makes sense because he just doesn't do anything, right? He's just a big dumb sack of meat who fails to throw rocks. So like until he gets a war scroll rewrite, he's just he is in the like circling the drain of viable points, right? Like you could make him 40 points, then maybe he's takeable, but then that's stupid. A monster of that size shouldn't be 40 points, right?
Yep.
Okay. So what we're talking about is what's the top of the list of things that need points adjustments where the problem can be solved with points alone.
Okay.
These aren't the 10s or 20s, the slight adjustments, all that's all fine. That'll all happen. Lots of stuff will move a little bit. What's your big offenders? I've got a couple.
Well, I'm going to say it before you do.
Okay.
Hearthguard Berserkers need to lose their Horde discount.
Preach, brother. Preach. Yes, that is correct. Amen.
Or it needs to be changed from an 80-point discount
to a 40-point discount.
To a 40-point discount.
Sure. I'll accept either.
Yep. And so instead of like going from 480 to 400, go from 480 to 440. I think all the magma at the same time, all the magma drops need to drop between 40 and 80 points. All of them.
All the magma drops, you said?
Yep, all of them. Every single one of them. They all hit on 4s.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I go with that big of an adjustment, but okay.
They can't do work as they currently are. So all the magma drops have to come down.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of dumb synergies that all happen all over that army that I hate.
No, there's trust me, they all need to come down.
I'm fine with that. Here's the thing: I'm willing to give you some points adjustments on your fire lizards that we don't get to see enough because they're awesome. Okay.
Sure. Yep.
As
long as the
Hearthguards go up to 480.
Yeah.
The worst fighting experience in AOS. Like they and Petrifex Elite, Mortek Guard are like in a struggle of who can be the dumbest thing to fight against in a game. And at least Mortek Guard have the decency to
Pink Horrors.
And Pink Horrors, yeah. At least most of the time they have the decency to die to mortal wounds.
Yep.
All right.
In lieu of War Scroll changes.
Yes. Again, we're not talking about things that are like.
In lieu of War Scroll changes, Pink Horrors need to jump up 20%.
Yeah, sure.
20 to 40%.
I would also push Flamers up by the bottom. Yep. And not crazy, but yeah, something. And the Gaunt Summoner himself needs to go up. Because of his ability to just port in a 200-point unit, or if we push the pinks up, let's say the pinks go to 220, 240, whatever.
240, yeah.
Sure. But let's say they go up, okay?
Yep.
Then
he needs to go up the same amount.
Right, because he only becomes a better deal, right? He should go up he should go up whatever they go up plus.
Yeah.
You're getting him at way too much of a discount right now.
I don't disagree with that. At the same time, bring Zangor down.
Like probably Zangor, you mean?
Put Zangor.
Yeah.
Probably like 40 points, 30 points. They're good, but they're not that good.
Yeah, I'm with you. They're just not they're not in that world anymore. Yes.
They're just not, right. And so like I would give it a major discount to Foot Zangor and minor discounts to the 2 disc guys. Because I want to see them on the table.
Sure. They're just completely pushing those 2 tighter together will mean that army has more playability across the board. Again, I'm not looking to completely break Flamers as a strat or Pinks as a thing. Right. I just want to see them brought in line, right?
Yep.
So yes, I agree. All right, cool, good. No, I'm with that. I'm with all that.
So those are the major things for them. I think that Seraphon probably needs some adjustments. I don't think they'll get any.
I
But I
hope
think
they do, because Croak needs to go way up.
yeah, Croak needs to
Way
go
up.
up,
He is
and
he is what was his name? Warpnaw Verminlord? I can't remember which one, because I
yes,
always get the Verminlords
yes,
confused.
yes,
But he is that guy level of underpointed right now.
yeah. So where would you put him at?
Probably 100 points over where he is right now.
Wow.
He's the
So
best
you put
hero
him
in
up.
the game right now. I stand
Okay.
behind that. Like,
Okay.
power per point, he's the best hero in the game right now.
Okay.
There's no way that's not true. I don't know who else would be even close.
Sure.
Uh, so like it's just he's way too good.
Okay.
He single handedly destroys some enemy army strats.
Yep. And I mean, like, I think on Tabletop Simulator, like 16% of armies right now are Seraphon armies.
Well, I mean,
Like,
Seraphon
that's
took
the
out
meta right
the
now.
TTS
Yeah.
tournament that happened again, and I mean, like whatever.
Yeah.
I just think Croak is overcosted. Most of Seraphon I actually think is pretty in line where I would expect it to be. I could see a couple
Sure.
of minor adjustments. I could see actually a couple things down a little bit, but Croak is just horrendously undercosted.
Yep. Yep. I would agree with that.
So I'm sorry, Caleb. I must disagree with you.
I would bring. I mean, Sarah or Stormcast just needs so much point work across. Like, they need War Scroll work. Ultimately, we talked
Yeah,
about
again,
that.
like to me, it feels like we did a fixing Stormcast show where I think we cracked it. I think most Stormcast problems aren't points wise anymore at this point. It's literally just like print the new Stormcast book, please, thank you, and just
Yeah. Yeah.
and let's
Um,
call it that way.
I think we still need some point swings on Nighthaunt. I still don't think we're there yet.
Oh, a couple things to come down in Nighthaunt, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Hex
again,
Race,
they're
I think, are
probably
the
one
big.
where they're
Hex,
probably another one where War Scroll work would do more, but sure.
sure, but like Hex Race are one of the egregious ones.
But are they at the
They're just
top of your list?
for things that need to come down in Nighthaunt.
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Okay.
Um, like Glaive Wraiths, you just can't make them worth the plastic that they are.
Right.
You know, they have a problem a lot similar to the Cygor. Because like you get like 3 for 70 points right now or 60, and I'm not going to buy 3 models for, you know, like what they are for that. It's just not happening.
Sure.
Like they just can't do the work that they need to do. So unless you're going to give me 3 models for 30 points, and that's just not happening. You know, like they're not going to put a unit like that in the game.
Yep.
Other stuff that needs adjustments.
So I got some hits for you here.
Yeah,
Okay.
hit me. Yeah.
Okay. So Varangard need to come way the hell down. They're just
Still.
overcosted as all get out.
Still.
Like,
Yep.
in their new book, they're total trash,
Yep.
and like, which is a real shame. Even in like the hosts where you supercharge them, they're often underwhelming because they just don't have the durability. Like,
Right.
they
Right.
just die really easy. They're still 15 wounds for like 300 points at this point, and
Yep.
that is way too few on a unit like that. The fact that I can go to Chaos Knights and get basically the same durability for almost half the points, which by the way, Chaos Knights need to drop slightly as well. Most
And
of
let
the
me
rest of that
just
book I
say-
actually think is fine.
This is
Oh.
what has me skeptical about the Stone Guard for Lumineth,
Sure.
because it looks like they're probably going to be 5 wounds for 100 points, which is the same pointing as Varangard.
As Varangard, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
it is. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're talking about. If they're 5 wounds for 100, that's Varangard, right?
Right. Right.
Varangard just melt like
Yep.
like it's just like butter on a hot stove.
Yep.
So that's one that occurs to me. But for the most part, like I don't know what to do with Marauders. Again, I feel like Marauders just need a War Scroll change because I just think they're too good. I don't want that. I don't want Marauders to be just like this ultimate win button of just dumb idiots flying forward, auto charging 9 and getting super buffed. But whatever. Like, if you were going to make them worse, you'd have to drop a couple other things in the army to balance it out, because the army does have lacks a lot of punch otherwise, right? When I look across the forces, okay, at other armies, I think ogres have a lot of space right now to be played with. Like all the Thunder Tusk, Huskard oriented junk.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Their
Yep.
priests
Yep.
need to come way the hell down. They are vastly overpriced what they do. Like
Yep.
the decision right now between them and a Stonehorn is a joke.
Yeah. You're like, nope.
It's a joke that those are in the same zip code of price.
Right.
Right.
I would agree with that. Yep.
Um. So okay. Uh, the Skaven stuff that hasn't gone up, which is all correct. All the point up moves in Skaven are correct. The other Skaven stuff needs to come down. So like rat ogres and like especially a lot of the clan Molder stuff that's
Yep.
just way overpointed for no reason.
Yep.
Some of the clan Eshin stuff that's way overpointed for no reason. Like the things that nobody ever plays because they're just horrendously overpriced.
Yep.
For like what those kinds of things are. Like the clan Eshin stuff is they have no offense, relatively no defense. They can just kind of scoot around at a relatively fast pace. Those should be some of the cheapest things in the game if that's all they're going to do. Again, if we're not going to fix the war scrolls. I think rat ogres are mostly fine. They just need to get cheaper, right? That kind of stuff. Like they're not tough. They don't hit hard enough, and they're way overcosted compared to something like regular ogres. Like it's
Yep.
not even close, right?
Agreed. Agreed.
IDK still have two big offenders in the two Eidolons, right? Who are still probably vastly overcosted.
Sure.
At the rate they've been falling, like at the rate they've been falling, we'll get to the right place in about 3 years. So let's just skip that and actually make those guys interesting because they're some of the coolest models that have ever been released and should probably be cheaper.
Right.
So that feels like the right answer there. Who haven't we hit? Is there anything else we haven't touched on that feels like a big offender right now? Assuming they're not going to rewrite, like a lot of the solo monsters that aren't heroes are still priced too high. Okay, slightly.
Can I say something that is probably going to be a little bit contentious?
Sure.
I would drop. I would drop Thunderers 20 points.
I don't know that that's contentious, but okay, it's fine.
Well, no, but it's going from like 120 to 100, which is like a huge drop when you're only 120 points.
Yeah. Oh, so somebody just sure. I don't think that's a problem. Somebody mentioned the Everqueen, by the way. The Everqueen is not a points problem. The Everqueen is a War Scroll problem.
Right. Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
A lot of things like Beasts of Chaos, I feel like they're already pointed correctly, but they have the wrong rules. Again, like they need different allegiance rules or War Scroll rewrites. It's hard to get cheaper than what a lot of that army already is. Like they can already put 200 wounds on the table pretty easily. We can't keep making that army cheaper.
Right.
Like, there's already a body problem with just actually completing a game at time with all the bodies you have.
Right.
Let's just make them better so they're actually worth the points that they're at.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so, like...
I got some more stuff.
Sure. Rob, hold on, I do want to say something here real quick. Okay. That Rob said, which he's talking about Storm Vermin. Storm Vermin and Skaven definitely need to come down. No disagreement there, Rob. You're right. I should have said most stuff that went up was correct. What I was really speaking toward there was like the Grey Seer on Screaming Bell, the Vermin Lords that went up, like all of that felt like the right moves, okay?
Yep.
The Storm Vermin are so tragically overpriced, it's a joke. So, yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Completely. Go ahead.
I'm going to say that we need to bring some of the Gloomspite Gits down.
Okay. Who in the Gits army needs to come down? Again, where it's not a War Scroll change. Because, obviously, the Dankhold Troggoths just need to get their War Scroll fixed.
Right, but that's just not going to happen. And so I think in the meantime, they need, like, a significant points reduction.
Sure. Okay. I mean, it's just, I hate fixing a thing like that the wrong way around.
Well, it doesn't matter because we can't fix it otherwise. Like, it just remains useless for the next 4 years until we get a new book.
Sure.
And so, like, they have to do something with it. And so, like, on some of it, I would drop points. I've said it before, like, man, those spider riders, they need to drop to 70 per 5.
Because they're
And I know
just they're such paper. They're just tissue paper.
they're the most paper. Right now they're 5, so 10 wounds at 100 points. And like if you compare them with bounders side by side, like it's literally silly.
Sure, of course, that's a joke comparison. Yes, and that's in the same army, so I have no problem with that comparison. I don't generally love comparisons cross army. Yeah, I get it.
Add 100 points.
They're the exact same points cost. They're the exact same number of wounds.
Yep. I would bring both the fanatics and the splatters down slightly. I'd adjust them down. And honestly, I think the Gobapalooza, that unit, that needs to adjust down. But I think where Gloomspite would benefit the most would be in their battalions all coming down.
Okay.
Almost across the board, Gloomspite battalions need to come down between like 20 and 40 points.
Okay.
So, because like there's a lot of issues, and a lot of their battalions are really big, and they don't do a lot for those really big, but you have to like get into those in order to anyways, I could go into it, but it's like I could see like some of that just needs to come down.
Sure. No, I'm fine with that.
So
yep, fair. Super fair.
How about cities?
The artillery needs to come down. The Hellblaster and the Hellstorm, because they're garbage. Like, they're just not good war machines. Let's actually make them reflect the damage that they can do. I know we're all super scared of artillery, but now that they have the combined profile and like they could be takeable, but I've seen somebody go like heavily, fairly invested in those with heavy synergies, and you know what it did the whole game? About 2 things: jack and nothing.
Right.
Because they're still just not that hard to kill. They're not that hard to deal with. They don't put out that much firepower.
Drake Spawn could come down.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Drake Spawn could come down. Yeah. I like Drake Spawn. I think they've got a lot of potential as a scroll. I think when we originally did cities, my read on Drake Spawn was I like them, but right now the comparison just doesn't work if you compare them against something like Demigryphs.
Right. Which are in the same army. Yeah, no, I agree with that. They could come down.
Yeah, I think that covers most of everything.
Yeah, I think that's like, I mean, there's always going to be lots of individual stuff
that needs tweaks.
Yeah, like somebody mentioned Glotkin and the Puscoil Blightlords. Again, I feel like both of those are war scroll changes that need to happen. Like, they should be scarier things because they feel like they're at about the right points. Like, if Glotkin dropped below a certain points level, he just wouldn't feel like the Glotkin anymore. He's supposed to be big and scary. Just make it worth it.
Like, that's a war scroll problem. I think the mid-sized beasts in like Nurgle and Slaanesh, so the Fiends of Slaanesh, the Beasts of Nurgle, I think both of them could use adjustments.
Oh god, the Beasts of Nurgle.
Yeah, they just don't get you. Like, there's just no function for them. They don't get used. And so I could see some points adjustments there to make them playable.
The Steam Tank and the Steam Tank Commander should be dropped slightly in cities. You mentioned cities. Those are 2 other things that should be dropped slightly. Like, again, just as single shot cannons rolling around that are relatively tough. It's very hard for them to get their points back. But again, probably like a 20-point drop would help them. And I think that'd be fine. Some people have mentioned Fiends and Slaanesh a couple times. I feel like Fiends probably just are never going to really have much of a role in Slaanesh because they just don't work with the Slaanesh strategy. Like, the Slaanesh strategy is not about what Fiends are doing and bringing to the table. That's not to say they couldn't. What I mean by that is, like, unless they were so egregiously cheap that you would be an idiot not to take them. Like, you have their current cost. The problem is that Slaanesh is all about loading up all your heroes, carving hard for depravity with the most damaging things in the game and locusting people out whenever you can, and having chaff in the form of like Hellstriders and stuff like that moves fast and gets in the way with lots of bases. And Fiends don't do any of that. They don't make you depravity. They don't have enough bodies to chaff. They don't do enough damage to earn their like a place as a secondary hammer. Like, they just don't do anything in the army. That's the problem. There's 50 other war scrolls that are, well, that's not that many, but you get my point. There's like, they are one of the like lowest pick war scrolls in the army when you look at how does this army win? What's its general strat? And then
Yep.
what units get me there? And it's just, there is a mile of distance in between those two.
Right.
Well, I
That's the
would
problem.
argue that it's similar to the disjunction that's felt in KO players with Arco, because they're not doing what the rest of the army does. And-
Sure, it's not as bad because at least Arco can go like sit on a point and not be actively detracting from the rest of your strategy. Like, yes, they can still make
Right.
some weak gunshots. Whereas
Right.
fiends, points you put in fiends
Well-
are actively points you didn't put in heroes, because
Sure.
the general strategy with Slanesh is literally like, you buy your 3 battle line units and then you invest whatever's left into heroes
Right.
and battalions. Like, there is no point to any other battle line unit in the army or any other
Right.
non-hero unit in the army. It is a hero hammer army. That's why I love it. Because I can only pay
Sure.
heroes and have a fully functional army. It's great. It's exactly what I want. So I'm excited for Giants. Soren said, if a couple people said that, like, if fiends generated depravity or gave depravity in some way, could they make it worth it? Yeah, that could be a way to solve it. Sure, that could be good. Yes, if they somehow had their own depravity generation, then sure, yep, absolutely, that could solve the problem. But again, I don't think it's a points thing.
Yep.
Right. So yeah, I'm with that, Soren. I think that's a great idea. I don't know what that would look like, but I'm open to suggestions. So yeah, I think we get. But right now, like, it would be like the easiest thing I could imagine, Tom, to actually, like, if you took, like, let's take KO, is if there is what Sky Wardens are doing, right? Like, where Sky Wardens are completely overshadowed by another unit that does what they do better in all ways, shape, and forms, right? And just like, it's hard to imagine, like, you'd have to drop the points on Sky Wardens lower, sort of significantly, to make them the better choice. And even then,
well, you'd have to drop them 20 points. Like, if they were like 3 for 80, then you'd have this really interesting like intersection.
Sure.
Of this,
yeah.
of
That's
this
my point. Like, you have to get way down there, and even then, it wouldn't be as bad because at least they still shoot. They still, like, if the KO strategy is shoot to win, right?
Right.
They still have guns.
Right. Well, and what I would say is that, like, Arco, the challenge is like one gun shoots 18 inches.
Yeah.
Nothing else does. And if it's all on objectives, if you're on objectives, they're not hitting the enemy. Like, they can't reach out and touch. And so they were the example that I was giving of, like, somebody that's just completely orthogonal benefit wise to the rest of the army.
Soren, I said, if the fiends dropped to 200 points for 3, would you take 6 in Slaves to Darkness? No, absolutely not. Like, they definitely don't have a point in Slaves to Darkness, just because, like, they're not doing enough in that army. They're either like, yes, I can buff them, but they're not. They're still not earning enough for what I want in a Slanesh Slaves, which I assume is what you're asking me. Like, in a Slanesh Slaves, there's just better choices.
For KO, Brock could come down. Boy.
Oh, sure. I mean, obviously, Brock
is just not, poor guy.
He's in another universe.
Yes, like, he does not compare favorably to the Injured Master.
I think somebody asked, is the Psychic Llama worth 100 or should it go up? I think it's exactly 100. We don't see them all over the place. They get taken every so often. Tells me they're exactly the right points value. Psychic Llama Cat at 100 is perfect.
Yeah,
he has a weird sort of effect that, if used properly, can be interesting.
Yep. How about Endless
He's
Spells?
a weird utility piece.
How about Endless Spells?
Oh, God, I don't know. Can I undo bound Endless Spells? Can I move the relevant bound Endless Spells that are too good up additional points?
You could double their points.
No, I mean, they shouldn't be doubled, but the bound Endless Spells that are obviously too good should go up some points. Sure.
Yeah.
Again, they don't need to be doubled. I'm not looking to break a strat, but I'm looking to, like, appropriately cost a strat.
So is Warp Lightning Vortex still right at 1,000?
You mean
or at 100? Yeah.
Is it right at 1,000? Well, it solved the problem. Never see that again outside of well, not even with KO, because they said it'd be done. Yeah, I'd never see it outside narrative play. Probably. I'll be honest with you. I still hate it, and I still wish we could just unmake it. But if you put it to 120, I wouldn't hate it.
I mean,
it's going to show up in a lot of bottles. That's my fear. That's my issue with it.
Right. Like, it's still just simply like it is still just simply the best KO spell there is.
Manzac Manager just said, I want to hear Tom and Vince speak this passionately about Ancient Aliens. Look, Tom and I love Ancient Aliens. We've watched like every season of that show. We talked about it a lot. We could do a show like that, I promise.
We could do an entire show on Ancient Aliens.
We love that show. Like that is a
there may or may not have been an alien reference in my dissertation.
Absolutely, yeah. We're all about it, but there you go.
Yes.
But probably not on brand for this show. At any rate. Yeah, I mean I think that's most of the critical ones, right? At any rate, I feel like I need to shut this down. My dog is in need of some help. So
sure.
With that, we'll say
we'll be back next week to do
exactly. Soulbound. We'll be back next week to do Soulbound. So, everybody, thank you very much. If you've got your own suggestions for points adjustments, please go ahead and drop those down in the comments. I want to see those. I think there's a lot of stuff here. If you've got ideas for what you would like to see in the narrative section, if you've got ideas, which I think there's so much stuff we can explore there. I want to see some cool suggestions down there. Please drop that stuff in the comments. If you've got other things you think should go into the match play section, other ideas for scenarios, drop those down there. I'm always so excited to read that stuff, so please do drop a comment. Hit like, please. That helps increase the engagement and magical YouTube algorithm things happen. So please hit like. I really appreciate that. We really appreciate that. It helps other people find the show. It's just a little button. It's right down there. You can just move your mouse like, yeah, and click. Okay. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching. We really appreciate it. I hope everybody out there is staying safe. I hope everybody is able to get out of their house maybe a little bit as sort of things are easing up around the world, but still being safe when they do so, and maybe some games of Warhammer can happen here or there. I know I'm excited to play a game or two as safely as I can as we all try to find our way in the world, and let's hope that we have some big news this Saturday. So with that, thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you next Wednesday.